Early Buddhism, v. Law of Kamma. Contents. 1. The 5 Universal Laws. 2. The importance of understanding the law of Kamma. 3. What is Kamma? 4. How does the law of Kamma operate? 5. What is the cause of Kamma? 6. Who is the doer of Kamma? Who reaps the vipaka? 7. Where is all the Kamma? 8. Classification of Kamma. 9. Is one bound to reap all that one has sown in just proportion? 10. Lessons learned from Kamma. 11. References. 12. Explanatory notes. 1. The 5 Universal Laws. In Buddhism, there are 5 universal orders or laws, yamas, that operate in the physical and mental realms. They are a. Utu yama, the caloric or physical inorganic order, e.g. seasonal changes of weather, nature of heat, energy, chemical reactions, etc. b. Bija yama, germinal or physical organic order, e.g., rice from rice seeds, sweet taste of sugar, different ways of plant propagation, etc. c. Kamma yama, moral or cause and effect order. Moral and immoral acts produce desirable and undesirable results. d. Citta yama, order of mind or psychic law, e.g., processes of consciousness, power of mind, telepathy, mind reading, recollection of past lives, divine eye, psychic power, etc. e. Dhamma yama, order of the norm, e.g., the natural phenomena occurring at the advent of a bodhisattva in his last birth, gravitation and other similar laws of nature. Every mental and physical phenomenon can be explained by these all-embracing 5 orders that are laws in themselves. Kamma as such is only one of these 5 orders that demand no giver, nor enforcer, as is the case with all natural laws. 2. The importance of understanding the law of Kamma. The law of Kamma is a fundamental doctrine in Buddhism. Although this belief was prevalent in India before the advent of the Buddha, it was the Buddha who explained and formulated this doctrine in its complete form, which we have today. Puzzled by the seemingly inexplicable, apparent disparity that existed among humanity, the young Brahmin Subha approached the Buddha and asked him to explain the reason for the cause of inequality. What is the cause and condition why human beings are seen to be inferior and superior? 4 people are seen to be short-lived and long-lived, sickly and healthy, ugly and beautiful, uninfluential and influential, poor and wealthy, low-born and high-born, stupid and wise. The Buddha's reply was, all living beings are owners of their actions, kammasaka, heirs of their actions, kammadayata. They originate from their actions, kammayani, are related to their actions, kammabandhu, have their actions as their refuge, kammapatisarana. It is action, kamma, that distinguishes beings as inferior and superior. Mahihima Akaya Sutta number 135, Kilakame Vibhanga Sutta. The Expositor, p. 87, a commentary of the Abhidhamma elaborates. Depending on the difference in Kamma appear the differences in the destiny of being without legs, with 2 legs, 4 legs, many legs, with perception, without perception, with neither perception nor non-perception. Depending on the difference in Kamma appear the differences in the birth of beings, high and low, base and exalted, happy and miserable. Depending on the difference in Kamma appears the difference in the individual features of beings as beautiful and ugly, high-born or low-born, well-built or deformed. Depending on the difference in Kamma appears the difference in worldly conditions of beings, such as gain and loss, fame and disgrace, blame and praise, happiness and misery. Thus, from the Buddhist standpoint, our present mental, moral, intellectual, and temperamental differences are, for the most part, due to our own actions and tendencies, both past and present. Although Buddhism attributes this variation to Kamma, as being the chief cause among a variety, it does not, however, assert that everything is due to Kamma. The law of Kamma, important as it is only one of the 24 conditions described in the Padhana or conditional relations, one of the treatises in the Abhidhamma. 3. What is Kamma? The Pali term Kamma, Sanskrit, karma, literally means action or doing. Any kind of volitional or intentional action, whether mental, verbal, or physical, is regarded as kamma. It covers all that is included in the phrase, thought, word or deed. Generally speaking, all good and bad actions constitute kamma. In its ultimate sense, kamma means all moral and immoral volition, kusala akusala cetana. In Anguttara 3:415, the Buddha says, I declare, O bhikkhus, that cetana, volition, is kamma. Having willed, one acts by body, speech, and thought. Refer to Ode 1 for an explanation of cetana. Involuntary, unintentional, or unconscious actions, though technically deeds, do not constitute kamma, because volition, the most important factor in determining kamma, is absent. Without volition, a deed is sterile, it produces no reaction of moral significance. Kamma is not fate, nor is it predestination, imposed on us by some mysterious unknown power controlling our lives. It is one's own doing that reacts on one's own self, and so it is possible to divert the course of our kamma to some extent. How far one diverts it will depend on oneself. So we have a certain amount of free will. The past influences the present but does not dominate it, for kamma is both past and present deeds. For how does the law of kamma operate? Kamma is action and vipaka, fruit or result, is its reaction. Kamma is the cause and vipaka is the effect. According to the law of kamma, every volitional activity is accompanied by its due effect. The Samyutta Nikaya 227 states, according to the seed that's sown, so is the fruit ye reap therefrom. Doer of good will gather good, doer of evil, evil reaps. Sown is the seed, and thou shalt taste the fruit thereof. Kamma is a law in itself that operates in its own field without the intervention of an external independent ruling agency. The law of kamma acts in the following manner. A. All immoral actions give immoral resultants. There are 10 immoral actions, namely, bodily action of killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, verbal action of lying, slandering, harsh speech, frivolous chatter, mental action of greed, ill will, and delusion. B. All moral actions give moral resultants. Abstention of the 10 immoral actions listed above, constitute moral action. In addition, there are also 10 bases of meritorious action, namely, charity, morality, mind culture, reverence, service, transference of merits, rejoicing in others' merits, teaching the Dhamma, listening to the Dhamma and forming right views. Chapter 11. C. A person does moral, immoral actions and he gets moral, immoral resultants. It is not possible for one person to perform moral, immoral actions and another person to receive the moral, immoral results. D. In judging each moral or immoral action, we consider these 4 fields of kamma, namely, 1. As one's own act. 2. As instigating another. 3. As consenting to another's instigation, and 4. As commending the act. 5. What is the cause of kamma? Ignorance, avidya, or not knowing things as they truly are, is the chief cause of kamma. Dependent on ignorance arise volitional activities, sankhara, states the Buddha in Paticca Samuppada, or dependent origination. Associated with ignorance is its ally craving, tanha, another root cause of kamma. Unwholesome actions are conditioned by these 2 causes. All good deeds of a worldling, though associated with the 3 wholesome roots of generosity, loving-kindness and knowledge, are nevertheless regarded as kamma because the 2 unwholesome roots of ignorance and craving are dormant in them. No kamma is accumulated by one who has eradicated craving and has understood things as they truly are. Buddhas and arahants do not accumulate fresh kamma as they have eradicated ignorance and craving, the root causes of kamma. They have destroyed the germ, their desires no longer grow. Te Kina Bija, Aviral Hikanda stanza 14, Ratana Sutta. Although volition is present whenever there is bodily, verbal, or mental action, in the case of an arahant, that volition is not accompanied by craving at the end of each impulsive moment. and it completely disappears without leaving any trace and without transforming it into Kama. Hence there is no rebirth for the Arahant. However, they will still receive the results of their past Kama. 6. Who is the doer of Kama? Who reaps the Vipaka? The answer is given in the Visuddhimagga, path of purification. O doer, is there who does the deed? Or is there one who feels the fruit? According to Buddhism, there are two types of truth: conventional truth and absolute truth. For conventional purposes, we use such terms as man, woman, animal, being, self, and so forth. In reality, there is no unchanging entity or any being in the form of a man, woman, animal, or anything permanent that can be called a self. The so-called fleeting form consists only of mental and material processes that are constantly changing, not remaining the same for 2 consecutive moments. This so-called being is a combination of 5 aggregates, khandhas, that are the aggregates of matter, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. There is no doer apart from the action, no thinker apart from the thought. Who then is the doer of Kama? Who feels the effect? Volition or intention, cetana, is itself the doer. Feeling, vedana, feels the fruit or effect. Apart from these mental processes, there is none to sow and none to reap. So Kama is not an accretion of the self or soul, since there is no permanent self or soul to begin with. 7. Where is all the Kama stored? An action, Kama, once performed, is finished as far as its performance is concerned. It is also irreversible. What remains of the action is its potential, the inevitability of its result, vipaka. Even within a lifetime, a person has performed a lot of actions, either moral or immoral. So he must have accumulated a lot Kama. Where is all this Kama stored? In answer to this question by King Milanda, the Venerable Nagasena replied, Kama is not stored somewhere in this fleeting consciousness nor in any part of the body. But dependent on mind and body, it rests, manifesting itself at the opportune moment, just as mangoes are not said to be stored somewhere in the mango tree, but dependent on the mango tree they lie, springing up in due season. In the same way, fire is not stored in a match, but under the right conditions of friction, the match will produce fire. Kama is an individual potential that is transmitted from one existence to another. 8. Classification of Kama. Kama is classified fourfold according to its function, priority of effect, time of taking effect, and the plane where the effects take place. A. Function. There are 4 classes of Kama according to function. Every birth is conditioned by past good or bad Kama, which predominates at the moment of death. The Kama that conditions future birth is called reproductive Kama. Now another Kama may intervene to assist and maintain or to weaken and obstruct the fruition of the reproductive Kama. Such actions are called supportive or obstructive Kama respectively. According to the law of Kama, the potential energy of the reproductive Kama may be totally annulled by a more powerful opposing past Kama, which seeking an opportunity may quite unexpectedly operate, just as a counteractive force can obstruct the path of a flying arrow and bring it to the ground. Such an action is called destructive Kama, which is more powerful than the other 2 in that it not only obstructs but also destroys the whole force. B. Priority of effect. First is Garuka or weighty Kama, which produces its effect in this life or the next for certain. Among the weighty or serious actions, the moral ones are the hanas or mental absorptions, while the immoral ones are the 5 immediately effective heinous crimes, namely, matricide, patricide, murder of an arahant, wounding of a Buddha, and creating a schism in the Sangha or monastic order. In the absence of a weighty Kama to condition the next birth, a death proximate Kama may operate. This is the action one does or recollects immediately before the dying moment. Owing to its significance in determining the future birth, the custom of reminding the dying person of his good deeds and making him perform wholesome actions still prevails in Buddhist countries. Habitual Kama is next in priority of effect. It is the action one constantly performs and recollects and which one has great liking. The last is cumulative karma, that embraces all that cannot be included in the above three. This is, as it were, the reserve fund of a particular being. C. Time of taking effect. There are moral and immoral actions that produce their effects in this very life or in a subsequent life or in any life in the course of one's wandering in samsara. These actions are immediately effective, subsequently effective, and indefinitely effective karma. When such actions that should produce their effects in this life or subsequent lives do not operate, they are termed ineffective. D. Plane where effects take place. The last classification is according to the plane in which the effects take place, namely 1. Immoral actions that ripen in the sensual plane, kamaloka, of misery, namely, hell, animal, ghost, and demon realms. 2. Moral actions that ripen in the sensual plane, kamaloka, of happiness, namely the human and the 6 celestial realms. In Abhidhamma, they are the 8 types of wholesome consciousness, Sobhanasiddha, pertaining to the sensual sphere. Refer to chapter 11, 2. 3. Moral actions that ripen in the form plane, Rupaloka, of Brahmas with form. They are the Rupayanas, namely, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Yahana. 4. Moral actions that ripen in the formless plane, Arupalika, of Brahmas possessing mind only but without form. They are the Arupayanas, namely, realm of infinite space, realm of infinite consciousness, realm of nothingness, and realm of neither perception nor non-perception. 9. Is one bound to reap all that one has sown in just proportion? While the law of karma states that we reap what we sow, there is another aspect of karma that is also very important, namely, that karma results can be modified. This means that the law of karma does not operate with mechanical rigidity but allows for modifications in the ripening of the fruit. It is this dynamic aspect of karma that the Buddha declared in Anguttara I, 249 as follows. If anyone says that a man must reap everything according to his deeds, in this case there is no religious life, nor is there an opportunity afforded for the entire extinction of sorrow. But if anyone says that what a man reaps accords with his deeds, in that case there is a religious life, and an opportunity is afforded for the entire extinction of sorrow. These statements by the Buddha tell us that karma is not fate or predestination. Nor is one bound to reap all that one has sown in just proportion. We can explain this by the simile of the billiard ball, whose direction can be changed or even stopped by sending another billiard ball to hit it at an appropriate angle. Like any physical event, the mental process constituting a karmic action does not exist in isolation. Thus its efficacy in producing a result depends not only on its own potential but also upon the potential of other karmas. We see, for example, that a particular karma, either moral or immoral, may sometimes have its result strengthened by supportive karma, weakened by obstructive karma, or even annulled by destructive karma. The occurrence of the result can also be delayed if the condition for ripening is not complete, and that delay may again give chance for obstructive or destructive karma to operate. Besides external conditions, the spiritual quality of the mind from which the volition arises can affect the results. To one rich in moral or spiritual qualities, a single offense may not entail the weighty results the same offense will have for one who is poor in such protective virtues. The Buddha compares this with the taste of water from a cup wherein a lump of salt has been added against the taste of water from the Ganges river in which the same lump of salt has been thrown in. Thus, although Angulimala killed many people before he met the Buddha, and his action would have landed him in the woeful states in future existences, his attainment of arahantship effectively closed the door to future rebirth and suffering, although he would still have to bear the dire consequences while he lived. So complicated is the web of kamic conditioning that the Buddha declared karma result to be one of the 4 unthinkables, that are beyond the range of thought and should not be speculated upon. But though the working of karma is beyond our intellect, the important practical message is clear. The fact that karma results are modifiable frees man from the shackles of predestination and fatalism and keeps the road to liberation constantly open before him. Everyone has a certain amount of free will to mold one's life or modify one's actions. Even the most vicious person can become a virtuous person if he wants to change his life and makes the effort to do so. However, everything in this world, including man himself, is subject to conditions, and without the necessary conditions, nothing can arise. 10 Lessons learned from Kamma. The Kamma doctrine of the Buddha is a teaching of moral and spiritual responsibility for oneself and others. The more we understand the law of Kamma, the more we realize how careful we must act in thought, speech and deeds if we wish to accumulate wholesome Kamma. For when a certain thought, speech, or deed is performed regularly, there is a definite tendency to repeat the act. Thus each act, mental or physical, tends to produce its like and be in turn produced, a condition called a savana or habitual recurrence. Wholesome actions performed regularly tend to increase the tendencies to goodness, while unwholesome actions performed regularly tend to do the opposite. The advice given by the Buddha in the Dhammapada sums up the lessons to learn from Kamma. Do not disregard evil lightly, saying, "It will not come nigh unto me." By the falling of drops even a water jar is filled. Likewise the fool, gathering little by little, fills himself with evil. Verse 121. Do not disregard merit, saying, "It will not come nigh unto me." By the falling of drops even a water jar is filled. Likewise the wise man, gathering little by little, fills himself with good. Verse 122. According to Venerable Ledi Sayadaw, by the declaration, all living beings are owners of their actions, heirs of their actions. They originate from their actions, are related to their actions, have their actions as their refuge. The Buddha also meant that the wholesome and unwholesome actions performed once by a being during his lifetime, may ripen even after a lapse of thousands of existences or world cycles. The wholesome kammas that yield good results and unwholesome kammas that yield bad results always accompany the life continuum of a being. Therefore one should always love and esteem good conduct more than one's own life by performing meritorious actions. On the other hand, one should always shun evil conduct more than the danger of death and refrain from evil deeds. 11 References. 1. The Buddhist Doctrine of Kamma and Rebirth by Venerable Narada Mahathera. Reprinted by Selangor Buddhist Vipassana Meditation Society, Petaling Jaya, Malaysia, 1994. 2. What Kamma is. Sayadaw Uthitala, Department of Religious Affairs, Yangon, Myanmar, 1992. 3. The Expositor, at Thessaloniki, Buddhaghosa's Commentary on the Dhammasangani. Translated by P. E. Mongtin and Mrs. Rhys Davids, Polytext Society, London 1976. 4. The Manual of Right Views in the Manuals of Buddhism by Mahathera Ledi Sayadaw, Agamahapandita, D. Lit. Translated into English by the editors of The Light of the Dhamma, Ministry of Religious Affairs, Yangon, Myanmar. 6 Death AD Rebirth. Contents. 1 Difference between rebirth and reincarnation. 2 How rebirth takes place. 3 The relinking or rebirth consciousness. 4 Modes of death. 5 Objects presented to the mind before death. 6 5 Visions of a dying person. 7 The dying consciousness. 8 Modes of birth. 9 4 Planes of existence. 10 References. 1 Difference between rebirth and reincarnation. All religions believe in an afterlife. However, the Buddhist doctrine of rebirth should be differentiated from the transmigration and reincarnation of other systems. Because Buddhism denies the existence of a transmigrating permanent soul, created by a god or emanating from a Paramatma, supreme or universal soul. Buddhism does not believe in any sort of transmigration. There is nothing that comes out of one body and enters another. Events take place according to the law of dependent origination or Paticca Samuppada. Everything comes into existence depending on an instance previous to it, and everything must also give rise to an instance, depending on itself. In the Paticca Samuppada, the Buddha mentioned that craving gives rise to clinging, that to becoming, or the continuity of the life process actuated by kamma, and that to birth. The craving of the dying man must give rise to clinging, that to the continuity of the life process of becoming through kamma, kamabhava. and that to birth. This is in line with the second noble truth whereby craving gives rise to a new being consisting of the 5 aggregates of clinging which are suffering. 2. How rebirth takes place. Starting with the conception of a human, the Buddha said that a germ of life is planted only when 3 conditions are met. Mother and father must unite, it is the mother's period, ovum is ripe, and the being to be born is present. For a being to be born here, a being with craving for becoming must die somewhere. It should not be taken to mean that a being to be born or soul is waiting for the egg and sperm to unite and then enter it. Parents only provide us with the cellular material in the rebirth process. This does not mean that all beings require parents for their birth, because there are beings that are reborn spontaneously, depending on their karma. Death according to Buddhism is the cessation of the psychophysical life of any one individual existence. It takes place by the passing away of the life faculty, jivatindriya, heat, and consciousness. Death is not the complete annihilation of a being, for though that lifespan ended, the force that hitherto actuated it is not destroyed. The instant death occurs, a new mental process called the rebirth consciousness, Padasandhi Siddha, conditioned by the reproductive karma, or kamabhava. The karma process of becoming, arises together with 3 kama-produced material groups constituting the body, sex, and base, seat of consciousness. They condition the arising of mental and material processes of the embryo, now called a being in the conventional sense. The rebirth consciousness and the 3 karma-produced material groups are collectively termed the being to be born. This term is used only in this particular connection, and must not be mistaken for a permanent soul waiting to enter a suitable womb to be reborn. 3. The relinking or rebirth consciousness. According to the Buddha's teaching of dependent origination, through the process of becoming, kamabhava, conditioned is rebirth. To understand this relationship, we need to realize that in reality, there is no such thing called a being, only mental and material processes called namarupa. Even during one's lifetime, these namarupas arise and pass away continuously. Death is the extinction of the last consciousness on dissolution of the old namarupa. Rebirth is the immediate arising of a new consciousness called the rebirth or relinking consciousness, together with the new namarupa. It is called relinking consciousness because it joins the new existence with the old one. The arising of the rebirth consciousness is conditioned by the last karma before death. If this karma is wholesome, rebirth will take place in a happy existence. If unwholesome, rebirth will take place in an unhappy existence. This is what the Buddha meant when he said that all beings are born of their karma, kamayani. It is very important to realize that a. There is no soul or permanent entity that leaves the old body and enters another new body. Lack of this understanding usually leads to the belief in the transmigration of souls or reincarnation, namely, the wrong view of eternity. B. As volitional activities or karma depend on ignorance and craving, beings that have not completely eradicated these defilements will still accumulate karma and undergo rebirth after death. Lack of this understanding usually leads to the wrong belief in annihilation after death, which is held by modern materialists. 4 modes of death. Death can occur due to the following 4 causes. A. Exhaustion of the force of the reproductive karma that gave rise to the birth in question. B. Expiration of the lifespan. C. Simultaneous exhaustion of both reproductive karma and expiration of lifespan. D. Action of a stronger karma that suddenly cuts off the power of the reproductive karma before expiry of the life term. The first 3 types of death are called timely death, while the last one is called untimely death. An oil lamp, for instance, may get extinguished owing to any one of the following 4 causes: I. The exhaustion of the wick. 2. The exhaustion of oil. 3. Simultaneous exhaustion of both wick and oil, and 4. Some extraneous cause like a gust of wind. The death of a person may similarly be caused by the above-mentioned 4 ways. 5 objects presented to the mind before death. To the dying man is presented a karma, karma imita, or gati imita. By karma is meant some action of his, whether good or bad. The most powerful are weighty kama. If this is absent, he may recollect the action done immediately before death called death proximate kama. If this is also absent, a habitual kama is presented to him, such as stealing in the case of a thief or healing the sick in the case of a good physician. Failing all these, some casual act, one of the cumulative reserves of the endless past or cumulative kama becomes the object of the dying thought. Among the skillful actions lay Buddhists are taught to do at their last moments are the performance of the 10 meritorious actions such as chanting the 3 refuges and 5 precepts mentally. Recalling one's pilgrimage to the holy places to arouse faith, listening to the Dhamma, tape recording or monks chanting, recollections of the virtues of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Recollections of one's virtues or generosity, practicing mental culture such as loving kindness or the 4 foundations of mindfulness, Satipatthana. Such wholesome actions will condition the arising of wholesome mental states to determine the last kama process before death and lead to rebirth in happy realms. As death can strike at any moment, one should be prepared to face this eventuality. Kama imita is any sight, sound, smell, taste, touch or idea which was obtained at the time of commission of the kama. Such as knives in the case of a butcher, patience in the case of a doctor, an object of worship such as the Buddha image or Bodhi tree in the case of a devotee, or happy memories of one's pilgrimage to India. Gati imita is some sign of the place where one is destined to be reborn, an event that invariably happens to dying persons. If these indications of future birth are bad, they could be turned into good by influencing the thoughts of the dying man, so that his good thoughts may now act as the proximate kama and influence the type of reproductive kama to condition his rebirth. These symbols of one's destiny may be hellish fires, mountainous regions, mother's womb, celestial mansions, etc. 6-5 Visions of a dying person. According to Venerable Dr. Rastrapal Mahathera, the 5 visions of a dying person may be hellish fires for those who are bound for rebirth in hell. Animals and forests for those bound for rebirth as animals, dark apparitions for those bound for rebirth as ghosts. Deceased parents and relatives for those bound for rebirth as humans and celestial mansions and chariots for those bound for rebirth in the celestial realms. Chinese folklore, too, abound with stories about dying people who claim to hear the sound of chains. Or see visions of King Yama's guards with hideous faces resembling horses or bulls coming with chains to take them to the underworld for judgment. Gati nimitta, being always a physical sight, is presented to the mind or as a dream. Psychologically these mental stages may be termed as illusion, hallucination, or delusion. Therefore people whose minds are lucid and unconfused at their dying moments may not experience any deathbed vision at all. Readers who wish to know more about deathbed visions of a dying man should read the booklet by Venerable Dr. Rastrapal Mahathera, REF No. 3. In which the author narrated his personal experience with a dying layman who underwent various deathbed visions and how the author helped to allay his fears, leading to a happy ending. 7. The dying consciousness. Taking for the object an action, kama, or sign of action, kama nimitta, or sign of destiny, gati nimitta, the dying consciousness runs its course even if the death is an instantaneous one. In Abhidhamma, a normal thought process runs for 17 thought moments, siddha, in which the javana process lasts for 7 thought moments. This javana stage is the most important from an ethical standpoint. It is at this psychological stage that good or evil is actually done, i.e. kama is performed. Commentators say that within the brief duration of a flash of lightning, there may be billions of siddhas or thought moments. In the thought process before death, the javana process is weak and runs for only 5 thought moments. This last javana process is very important as it determines the reproductive kama of the next life. Next, the registering consciousness which identifies the object may or may not follow. After this, occurs the death consciousness, kyutisiddha, the last thought moment to be experienced in the present life. On death the last consciousness passes away, conditioning the arising of a new consciousness called rebirth consciousness, padisandhi, in a new body or form of birth. And that new consciousness, too, immediately passes away and subsequent consciousness arise one after another in a stream, like a flux, like the flow of a river. This renewed life flux inherits all past experiences. This new being is neither absolutely the same as the past one owing to its different composition, nor totally different, being the identical stream of kamic energy. The transition of the flux is instantaneous. There is no room for an intermediate state or antharabhava. According to the Kathavathu, points of controversy, certain sects such as Pubbasaliya and Samataya held that there is an interim stage where a being awaits reconception for a week or longer. The counter-argument is based on the Buddha's dictum that there are three states of becoming, bhava, only the sensual, the form and the formless worlds. Hence Buddhists do not believe that the spirit of the deceased person takes lodgment in a certain intermediate state until it finds a suitable place or womb for its reincarnation. Rebirth takes place immediately, and there is no difference in time whether one is born in a heaven or in a state of misery, as an animal or as a human. What actually conditions rebirth is not the death consciousness, Kutisita, but the last Javana process described earlier. If it is wholesome, rebirth takes place in a happy realm; if unwholesome, rebirth takes place in a woeful state of existence. Understanding this and the fact that death can strike at any moment in one's life, one should always be heedful and practice as many skillful actions as possible to face this eventuality before it is too late. 8 modes of birth. There are 4 modes of birth, namely: A. Egg-born creatures such as birds, reptiles, and fish. B. Womb-born creatures such as humans, mammals, and some earthbound deities. C. Moisture-born creatures such as certain insects that take moisture as material for their growth. D. Creatures having spontaneous births. They are generally invisible to the human eye. Conditioned by past karma, they appear suddenly, independently of parents. Brahmas, Devas, Pitas, Asuras, and hell beings belong to this class. There are 9 material groups that are produced by karma, namely: base or seat of consciousness, life principle, male sex, female sex, and 5 sensitive material qualities of eye, ear, nose, tongue and body. They are fully developed in beings that are born spontaneously. As such, beings of spontaneous birth do not need parents to provide the material layer or cells for their birth. 9 4 planes of existence. The 4 planes of existence are: A. Sensual plane of misery, apaya or kamadugati bhumi. B. Sensual plane of bliss, kamasugati bhumi. C. Fine material or form plane, rupa bhumi. D. Non-material or formless plane, arupa bhumi. The sensual plane of misery comprises 4 states, namely: Naraya or hell, animal kingdom, Pita or ghost world, and the host of Asuras or demons. Rebirth in any of these 4 woeful states is conditioned by unwholesome reproductive karma that predominates at the moment of death. In all 7 sensual states of bliss comprising the human world and the 6 heavenly realms, rebirth as a normal human being or deva is conditioned by superior wholesome reproductive karma. However, rebirth as a degraded human being who is blind, deaf, dumb, retarded, or deformed by birth, or as an earthbound degraded Asura of the lower realm of 4 great kings, is conditioned by inferior wholesome reproductive karma. Refer to Chapter 11, Types of Wholesome Karma. In the form or rupa plane, rebirth in one of the 16 states of Brahma gods that possess form is conditioned by the type of mental absorption of the form plane, rupahana, that one has attained to. In the formless or arupa plane, rebirth in one of the 4 states of formless Brahma gods is conditioned by the type of mental absorption of the formless plane, arupayana, that one has attained to. In total, the 4 planes comprise 31 states of existence. Details of which are provided in the next chapter. 10 references. 1. The Buddhist Doctrine of Karma and Rebirth by Venerable Narada Mahathera. 2. A Discourse on Paticca Samuppada, Dependent Origination, by the Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw of Burma. 3. 5 Visions of a Dying Man by Venerable Rastrapal Mahathera Bodhi Leaves No. 150 published in 2000. Buddhist Publication Society, Kandy, Sri Lanka. 4. Points of Controversy, a translation of the Kathavathu by Shui Zhanong and Mrs. Rhys Davids. Published by the Polytext Society, London, 1979.